very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. A few weeks ago, we told you about how Russia has a new super bomb in its arsenal, the Fab-1500, a bomb so powerful it helped the Russian troops capture Ukraine's last stronghold, Avdiivka. Well, today, I'm about to tell you about another new bomb that will make the Fab-1500 look like nothing. Russia has started mass producing Fab-3000. A super bomb that is sure to make the Russian military an even more formidable force. Now, just to give you an idea, while the Fab-1500, weighing 1,500 kgs, carries nearly 700 kgs of explosives, the new Fab-3000 bomb weighs 3,000 kgs. Now, the question is, why does Russia, an already powerful military, need such a big bomb? And what strategic importance does it hold for the Russian army? Also, isn't a 3-ton super bomb a bit of an overkill? Does Ukraine or any of its allies have anything in their arsenal that can fend off this new Russian threat? Let's find out. First, let me tell you about the Fab-3000. It's a super heavy aerial bomb. It has been designed for strategic use by the Tu-22M3 heavy bombers. It can carry 1,400 kgs of TNT, fitted with wings and satellite guidance. This new mega bomb would make a powerful standoff munition. According to Russian media reports, the Fab-3000 are designed to strike strong points at underground, even concrete reinforced command points. They can penetrate their targets, exploding and destroying everything, including underground warehouses. In short, these are some very new, powerful bombs. But are these bombs practical? Western experts don't think so. They say that the Fab-3000 as a glide bomb would be unwieldy and lacking in range. These bombs would basically require the Russian bombers to fly past the front lines and face the Ukrainian air defenses. This will give them a tough challenge, as per the experts. You see, when the war started in the year 2022, the Russian Air Force largely sat out the back half of the year. Once the Ukrainian air defenses recovered from the shock of Russia's initial attack, it had become dangerous for the Russian warplanes to fly over past the front line. And at that time, the Russian Air Force, unlike most Western air forces, had not invested much in long-range precision weapons. All that changed last year. The Russians started bolting pop-out wings as well as satellite guidance kits to what are now called dump bombs. These were rough analogues of American Joint Direct Attack munition and French Hammer glide bombs. By lobbing these bombs, sometimes as far as 25 miles past the front line, the Russians could flatten Ukrainian positions without exposing themselves to their air defenses. Now, using glide bombs has become standard practice for the Russian forces. In fact, Russia can credit these glide bombs for their territorial gains. Daily barrages of 100 or more glide bombs flattened what was left of Avdiivka, forcing the Ukrainian troops to withdraw from this former stronghold in February. In all, the Russians have dropped hundreds of glide bombs this year. According to Ukrainian Lieutenant General Ivan Gavriluk, that's 16 times as many glide bombs as they dropped last year, 16 times. And that's the strategic advantage of these mega bombs. So, does Ukraine have anything in its arsenal that can beat this Russian menace? Well, yes and no. Ukraine's best air defenses being the American-made Patriots, they range as far as 90 miles. In principle, they can hit the glide bombers before they release their munitions. But that can happen only if the Patriot crew hit the road and deploy close to the front line. But you see, that exposes the Ukrainian Patriots to Russian missile attacks. In February, the Ukrainian air defenses successfully shot down 13 Russian Sukhois in 13 days. But their redeployment ended in disaster. In March, a Russian drone spotted the Patriot convoy near the front line and fired an Iskander ballistic missile at them, blowing up at least 2 Patriot launchers. The Ukrainians pulled back and the Russians went back to dropping glide bombs. Now, the new wing kit has extended the range of the standard Russian glide bomb. Whereas earlier their range was 25 miles, now their range is around 40 miles, which means that these Russian bombs are not only heavy and dangerous, they are also now harder to target. Just given the impunity with which Russians can drop glide bombs at the Ukrainians, and also given the apparent massive supply of these super bombs, there is no reason why the Russians cannot field heavier versions of this weapon. After all, they appear to be very, very powerful. According to military experts, Ukraine has nothing up its sleeves to counter the Russian Fab-3000 bomb. They say that the new bombs may play a crucial role in Russia's future offensives on the battlefield. Russia has reportedly enhanced the Fab-3000 bomb with a correction module. And with this upgrade, the Fab-3000's destructive power has become even more formidable. Shifting our focus now to the war in West Asia. Do you know about Israel's Iron Dome? Yes, the defense system that intercepts its enemies' missiles. But that's not the only one it has. Israel also has an Iron Dome to protect its sea. It's called the SeaDome. The IDF, in fact, has used it for the first time ever. How does the system work? How efficient is it? Let's take a look. The SeaDome is the naval version of the Iron Dome. It's a surface-to-air missile system, basically. It was first unveiled in the year 2014 and declared operational in November 2022. At the time, the SeaDome was hailed as a significant milestone. Now it has been put to use for the first time ever. How does it work? Quite similar to the Iron Dome. It even uses some of the same technology. One major difference is the system is mounted on ships, on German-made warships. The SeaDome is integrated into the ship's radar to detect incoming targets, and that way it ensures complete vessel protection and high kill probability against a full spectrum of modern threats, both maritime as well as coastal. You see, Israel is ramping up its naval defense. The port city of Eilat, in particular, has been the target of aerial attacks by militias in the region, including the Houthis in Yemen. Just last week, a flying object that wasn't intercepted by the air defense struck a building in the city. An Iran-backed group in Iraq claimed responsibility for the attack. On Monday, an unmanned aerial vehicle entered Israeli airspace from the east and entered the Gulf of Eilat. That's when Israel decided to use its SeaDome. Videos circulating on social media captured flashes of light as the defense system intercepted projectiles mid-air over the sea. The IDF released a statement saying, and I'm quoting, following the sirens that sounded in the area of Eilat regarding the infiltration of a hostile aircraft, IDF naval forces identified a suspicious aerial target crossing into Israeli territory. The target was successfully intercepted by the SeaDome naval defense system. And that's not all. Israel has used multiple other defense systems and warships for the first time since the beginning of its war with Hamas. It deployed the SAR C-class corvette in combat for the first time last October and has continued to use it. Other defense systems include the missile interceptors Arrow 2 and Arrow 3. In fact, Israel has used them against attacks launched from the Gaza Strip and the Red Sea. You see, Israel is boosting its defense. It has been since the war started. Until now, it had been supported by its allies. But as the conflict drags on, Israel is losing support. It stands isolated on the global front. In the latest, Turkey has decided to impose trade restrictions. The country has been a staunch critic of Israel's military actions in Gaza. It first announced that it is limiting exports of 54 types of products to Israel with immediate effect. The products, by the way, include aluminium, steel, construction material, jet fuel, chemical fertilizers. And in a tit-for-tat move, Israel also announced that it is preparing a ban on products from Turkey. All of this comes after Israel barred Turkish military cargo planes from airdropping humanitarian aid to Gaza. And as Israel continues to lose support globally, ramping up its military and defense seems to be its only way forward. And with that, we're taking a very short break. We will be right back. And before we go, here's a quick look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight. A major development from the Taliban-ruled Afghanistan. The Taliban are working to return private land to Hindu and Sikh minorities in Afghanistan. We get you the details. Will Canada join the AUKUS? What's brewing? We also focus on the big question, what does Canada bring to the table? The head of a Gurdwara in Canada has been shot dead in an incident that has sent shockwaves through the community. We get you the details in just a bit. What is the zombie drug wreaking havoc in the UK all about? What are the authorities saying? This is coming up on the other side of the break as well. You don't want to miss this story. We will be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Thanks very much for staying on with us. You are watching Gravitas. Our story now is about the quiet diplomatic triumph of the Indian NSA. India's engagement with the Taliban regime in Afghanistan is starting to bear fruit. In a further effort to engage with India, the Taliban regime is undertaking initiatives to return private land to Hindu and Sikh minorities in the country. You heard that right. The so-called Justice Ministry of the Taliban regime has started work on restoring property to the displaced members of the Hindu and Sikh communities. Suhail Shaheen, the head of the political office of the Taliban, has said that they have set up a commission that will ensure the return of Hindu and Sikh families who have played a historic role in the economy of Afghanistan. According to reports, these properties are being reclaimed from warlords who are associated with the previous Western-backed regime. This is a major development. It shows that the Taliban are taking efforts to address the injustices experienced by the minorities who have long endured displacement as well as marginalization. You see, Hindus and Sikhs have long been integral parts of Afghanistan's demographic landscape. They historically constituted around 1% of its population. However, their mass exodus began in the late 1970s and the 1980s. It was due to political tumult and the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. And then the rise of the Taliban and the cycle of violence in the country resulted in further displacement of these communities. A large number of Sikhs and Hindus also left Afghanistan after the Taliban takeover overthrew the government of President Ashraf Ghani in 2021. And in the aftermath, Afghan Sikhs and Hindus were given the means to reside in New Delhi. It is important to note India has not recognized the Taliban government in Kabul as the de facto rulers, but ice has been broken by the two sides. India has tried to engage, not endorse, but engage with the Taliban regime. In fact, last month, an Indian delegation met the Taliban Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi in New Delhi. New Delhi directly engaged with the leadership in Afghanistan. The two sides discussed various issues, including cooperation to combat the threat from the Islamic State Khorasan province. So you see, even though India has not recognized the Taliban officially, New Delhi has engaged with the regime as they are central to the future of Afghanistan. And therefore, Taliban's decision to restore land to displaced Hindus and Sikhs can only be seen as a positive sign. It shows that Afghanistan is rectifying the wrongs inflicted upon its minority communities. In fact, reports suggest that the Indian officials viewed this development as a positive gesture towards India. There are signs that the diaspora is now returning to Afghanistan. Take the example of the prominent Afghan Sikh population, Narendra Singh Khalsa. Nearly 3 years after he was evacuated by the Indian government in the aftermath of the Taliban takeover, Narendra Singh Khalsa has returned to Afghanistan. His return to Kabul was announced by a Taliban government department called the Contact Commission on Liaison with Afghan Personalities. In 2019, Khalsa was an elected leader in the lower house of Afghanistan's parliament. When the Taliban took over in 2021, he was one of the 2 Afghan Sikh parliamentarians to be evacuated to India. And according to reports, Taliban's new policy of restoring the private property of Hindus and Sikhs is part of a wider image-building effort of the Taliban government. You see, Taliban wants to show the world that it is leading a responsible country. It is also an indication of the Taliban's positive attitude towards India. Like I mentioned earlier, India does not recognize the Taliban regime in line with the rest of the international community. However, it has stepped up its engagement with the Taliban, especially with Indian diplomats who have been stationed in the Indian embassy in Kabul since August 2022. You see, India's priorities in Afghanistan include providing humanitarian aid, ensuring the formation of an inclusive government, combating terrorism and drug trafficking, and preserving the rights of women, children, and minorities. Yes, the Taliban administration is nowhere close to fulfilling the promises that it made as foreign forces withdrew from Afghanistan. But perhaps continuous engagement with the Taliban regime could be one of the ways to address critical challenges in Afghanistan. And to that end, India has continued its relations with the Taliban. And this is why we call Taliban's latest policy move a triumph for Indian diplomacy. Canada is considering joining the AUKUS alliance. It says it needs nuclear submarines to patrol its Arctic waters. Now, all that is well and good. But the question is, what does Canada bring to the table? What does it have to offer in return of the said submarines? And what really is Canada's role in the Indo-Pacific region anyway? On Monday, AUKUS members announced that they will begin consultations on collaborating with prospective partners around the world. They specifically mentioned Japan as an ally they are considering to work with. But there was no mention of Canada. Even after its federal government had shown interest in joining the pact, once again, Canada has been left out by some of its closest allies. Now, before going further, let's just revisit what AUKUS is actually for and what is it all about. It was formed by Australia, the UK and the US in the year 2021. It's an effort to push back against China's growing power in the Indo-Pacific region. How exactly? By focusing on military modernization through new technologies. The second phase of the deal is about to begin. It's referred to as Pillar 2. Essentially, it covers sharing advanced technology such as hypersonic missiles, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, undersea drones, and electronic warfare. Canada now wants to be included. It's mulling joining the alliance. But what does it have to offer? Back in 2021, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau himself described AUKUS as a deal for nuclear submarines, which Canada is not currently or anytime soon in the market for. All that Ottawa has are 4 refurbished submarines that date back to the 1980s British era. They are old and far from what new generation submarines have to offer. Last year, a standing Senate committee advised the Canadian government, in fact, to replace its aging submarines with new ones that can operate more effectively in the Arctic region and sail beneath ice. Because the committee warns Canada faces an enhanced security threat from Russia as well as China. Is Canada scared? Is that why it is trying to join the AUKUS? But then, what good is it going to bring anyway? AUKUS is all set to enter its Pillar 2, but what about Pillar 1? It was focused on delivering nuclear-powered submarines to Australia and bringing its fleet in line with the US and the UK. Have the goals been accomplished? The first subs are set to be delivered in the 2030s. Yes, the 2030s. The trio members don't even have a fixed year for the delivery. It can take anywhere between 6 and 16 years. If Australia's needs already run unmet, what hope does Canada have? And on what grounds? Canada is simply not in a position to contribute as an equal partner. The entire point of AUKUS is to ensure the modernization of military systems and staying ahead of the curve. But Canada, you see, has not adapted that well. Consider this as an example. On Monday, Trudeau and his government committed another $8.1 billion to defense over the next 5 years. That would bring Canada's defense spending to 1.76% of the GDP by 2030. Even then, it would be below the NATO's threshold target of 2%. The updated defense policy has also called for purchasing conventionally powered submarines. But the cost of buying those new submarines is not yet calculated. And even when that happens, like I already told you, the new subs or the submarines would only replace Canada's 4 old Victoria-class submarines. Trudeau has left the door open to nuclear-powered options. He sees it as a chance to join AUKUS. But in truth, Canada first needs to catch up with the AUKUS members and later perhaps think of being served at the same table as them. And staying with Canada, it has egg on its face. An official investigation into allegations of foreign interference in Canada's 2021 federal election has concluded. They found that India did not meddle in the Canadian electoral process. Instead, the culprit was China. The investigation, which was led by a panel of senior Canadian officials, was initiated amid concerns over the integrity of the national polls. It followed claims by Canada's Security Intelligence Service, or the CSIS, suggesting possible interference by both India and Pakistan in the 2019 and 2021 elections. Well, now, the panel has found no evidence to support those allegations against India. In fact, according to the probe panel, there was a lack of information on any disinformation campaigns originating from India. They also noted the absence of tactics that could be traced back to the Indian government during the election campaign.
Because there was no information suggesting that there was disinformation or originating from that source in the Canadian information ecosphere during that period.
And I do not believe during the 2021 election that we saw evidence of government of India using those tools in the campaign.
However, the same investigation found China had interfered in the last two Canadian elections. The investigation found that in both cases, the Chinese interference focused on supporting those seen as either pro-China or neutral on issues of interest to the Chinese government. What's more, the task force aimed at tracking foreign interference in polls further found that there was a campaign online and in the media to discourage Canadians, particularly of Chinese heritage, from supporting the Conservative Party. Although the task force concluded that foreign interference did not have any bearing on the election's final result, but the Chinese intervention did cost the Conservatives. And guess who won those elections? Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party. The controversy had led Prime Minister Trudeau to establish a commission to delve into the matter of foreign interference. In fact, Trudeau himself scheduled to testify before the inquiry panel. In the aftermath of these initial allegations of India's involvement, Foreign Affairs Ministry spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal had strongly denied the claims. He had stressed on India's commitment to non-interference in the democratic processes of other countries, and India now stands vindicated. Meanwhile, the killing of the president of a Gurdwara in Canada has been dominating headlines. Who was he? What really happened? And what do we know so far? Let me get you the details. What was his name? Bhuta Singh Gill. Bhuta Singh Gill. He was shot dead. We'll tell you more about what happened and why this is a major cause of concern. First, let me tell you a bit about Bhuta Singh Gill. Like I said, he was the head of a Gurdwara in Canada, in Edmonton, to be precise. It's the capital city of the Canadian province of Alberta. Bhuta Singh Gill was also the owner of a construction firm and a prominent builder. Reports say on Monday he was shot dead. A shooting spree in broad daylight unfolded at a construction site in the Alberta province. Reports say Bhuta Singh Gill was shot multiple times. According to the police, they located 3 injured males. It was then determined that 2 males were dead and another was seriously injured. The paramedics transported him to a hospital. It's a shocking incident, a shooting spree in broad daylight. It has ignited fresh concerns about the security situation in Canada. The incident has sent shock waves through the community. It's been called a devastating loss for the community. What really happened? According to a report, the autopsies in the case are expected to be finished in the next couple of days, and the police have initiated an investigation into the matter. So we will have to wait and watch. A famous museum in London, the Wallace Collection, has unveiled its highly anticipated exhibition. It features the Lion of Punjab, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the Sikh warrior king. The exhibition will run from April 10th to October 24th. It delves into the extraordinary life and legacy of Ranjit Singh, the visionary leader who founded the Sikh Empire. On display is a splendid array of weaponry, intricate miniature paintings and exquisite jewelry from the Sikh Empire. They have been sourced from both public and private collections. At the heart of the exhibition lies the story of Maharaja Ranjit Singh's reign. By the turn of the 19th century, when there was chaos and instability after Afghan invasions, Maharaja Ranjit Singh emerged as the undisputed king of Punjab. It was his rapid ascent to power that led to the birth of the influential Sikh Empire. Paying homage to Ranjit Singh's life, the exhibition is inspired by flourishing trade, vibrant arts, and the development of a brave military force during his reign. You can see historic artifacts from Ranjit Singh's court. Some of them belong to his family members, such as Maharani Jind Kaur and Maharaja Duleep Singh. For the first time ever, the museum is displaying its group of Sikh arms and armor. One of the highlights is a magnificent sword. The sword is believed to have once belonged to Maharaja Ranjit Singh himself. It was adorned with gold and gemstones. Also on display are a stunning miniature painting of Maharaja Ranjit Singh and the golden throne crafted by Hafiz Muhammad Multani for Maharaja Ranjit Singh. While he is celebrated for his military prowess, many don't know that he fostered political alliances that brought about an era of peace and prosperity, religious tolerance and multiculturalism. Despite tensions with the British East India Company, Maharaja Ranjit Singh maintained cordial relations while modernizing his army with European assistance. His enduring legacy earned him the label Sher-e-Punjab, that is the Lion of Punjab. He was revered not only in India, but globally as well. His foreigner admirers refer to him as the Napoleon of the East, in fact. And let's now talk about a zombie drug that is wreaking havoc in the UK. UK experts have issued a stark warning about the usage of vapes containing a dangerous substance known as xylazine, which is often referred to as the zombie drug. This sedative, originally intended for large animals like cows and horses, has made its way into illicit e-cigarettes, and this poses lethal dangers to human beings. The discovery of xylazine in confiscated products has alarmed experts. This revelation not only endangers users but also puts individuals who inject or consume potent drugs at heightened risk. The global illegal xylazine market has primarily seen its combination with potent opioid drugs like heroin or fentanyl. According to reports, the UK has already recorded at least one death linked to xylazine use. This mounts concerns over potential escalation, mirroring trends observed in the US. Experts from King's College London have unveiled the emergence of new illicit xylazine products infiltrating the UK market. Beyond risky vapes, their investigation uncovered tablets such as codeine or diazepam that contain xylazine. They gathered evidence from toxicology laboratories and scrutinized drug testing results from halls seized by law enforcement seizures. Their findings have been published in the journal called Addiction. Though only 2 THC vapes and a small number of illegally sold pills out of tens of thousands of products were highlighted as tainted products, experts still emphasize on the alarming nature of these findings. The UK's Advisory Council on the Misuse of Drugs has also recommended to the government to classify xylazine as a Class C drug alongside substances like laughing gas and anabolic steroids. This would mean that anyone possessing xylazine could be jailed for 2 years, and those who are dealing in the drug will be jailed for 14 years. The dangers of xylazine further escalate when it is combined with other powerful sedatives, leading to adverse effects like breathing difficulties, low blood pressure, slowed heart rate, addiction, severe withdrawal symptoms, and even death. The full extent of harm from inhaling xylazine remains uncertain. Past instances of children and teenagers in the UK requiring hospitalization after using vapes spiked with another illegal drug like spice, highlighting the urgent need for vigilance. A government spokesperson has also addressed the need for decisive action. They have said, and I'm quoting, "We are aware of the threat from xylazine and are determined to protect people from the threat posed by this drug and other illicit synthetic drugs. We will not hesitate to act to keep the public safe. Following advice from the Advisory Council on the misuse of drugs, we intend to make xylazine a Class C drug." The need to therefore be constantly alert to shifts in the illicit drug landscape and address emerging health challenges is more important than ever. Let's now shift focus to what's happening in the US. Arizona's top court has upheld an 1864 law that bans nearly all abortions. The decision can have far-reaching consequences for women's health care, as well as in the coming presidential elections in the country. Our next report getting you the complete story.
I'm devastated by this decision.
Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs slammed a ruling by the state's Supreme Court on Tuesday to revive a law dating back to 1864 that bans abortion in virtually all instances. Shortly after Tuesday's decision, the Democratic governor called for the Republican-controlled legislature to repeal the Civil War-era ban.
We are 14 days away from this extreme ban coming back to life. It must be repealed immediately.
The 4-2 ruling by Arizona's top court is on hold for 14 days to allow parties to raise arguments at the trial court level. In a statement, President Joe Biden denounced the ruling, calling it the result of the extreme agenda of Republican elected officials. Here's White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
With today's decision, millions of Arizonians will soon face an even more extreme and dangerous abortion ban than they did before. This Arizona law, which was initially enacted in 1864, more than 150 years ago, fails to protect women even when their health is at risk, or in horrific cases of rape or incest. There are now 21 extreme state abortion bans in effect across the country.
The decision marked the latest legal setback for abortion rights, following a ruling last week that cleared the way for a 6-week abortion ban in Florida that was backed by Republicans. States have been allowed to adopt such bans after the U.S. Supreme Court, with its 6-3 conservative majority, overturned the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling that made access to abortion a constitutional right nationwide.
The states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both.
Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump on Monday said access to abortion should be determined by the states and stopped short of proposing a national ban that could imperil his chances with swing voters in the November election. In Arizona, a crucial swing state, the issue could ultimately be decided by the voters after a group of abortion rights advocates last week said it gathered enough signatures to put on the November ballot a measure that would enshrine in the state's constitution a right to an abortion until fetal viability. So far, abortion rights measures have prevailed everywhere they have been on the ballot since the U.S. Supreme Court's 2022 decision.
The skies could be bumpier than expected this summer. A surge in travel demand is colliding with a shortage of new airplanes, creating a potential squeeze for airlines. Our next report breaking down the factors at play and what it could mean for your upcoming summer trip.
The airline industry is bracing for a challenging summer as travel demand surges beyond pre-pandemic levels. Analysts predict passenger numbers to reach a record 4.7 billion in 2024, exceeding 2019 figures. Airlines were initially expecting a 9% growth in global capacity this year, but those projections seem unrealistic. The aircraft shortage stems from production slowdowns at major manufacturers like Boeing and Airbus. This has led to a 19% decrease in expected aircraft deliveries for airlines this year. US carriers are facing the brunt of this issue, with a projected 32% fewer new planes compared to their plans. The grounding of Boeing's 737 MAX due to safety concerns and engine flaws in Airbus A320neo jets are significant contributors to this shortage. Airlines like Vistara have faced additional challenges due to the internal disruptions. Pilot discontent over work schedules and revised pay structures have resulted in flight cancellations. To address this and ensure smoother operations, Vistara has implemented strategic flight cuts and plans to source pilots from Air India. Airlines are resorting to creative solutions to cope with limited aircrafts. Leasing rates for new planes have skyrocketed, reaching their highest point since 2008. Airlines are also extending the lifespans of older, less fuel-efficient jets, leading to increased maintenance costs. These measures, coupled with rising labor costs, are expected to strain airline profit margins despite the high travel demand. Passengers may also experience higher fares due to the limited capacity. With summers just around the corner, airlines brace for a turbulent season. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Much of Europe is struggling with tumbling birth rates, and Greece is becoming an example of just how hard it will become to reverse the trend. With social and economic repercussions, we ask if governments are doing enough to avert a doomed future. Take a look at our next report.
Nicholas Giannakidis is the only 13-year-old in his village in northeastern Greece. His father, Christos, often drives him about 30 miles from Armenio to play soccer with the few other children scattered across the region. The village used to be full of kids. Now, its president, Stratos Vassiliadis, says 2/3 of the 300 residents are over 70.
We are at a turning point. The next few years are our last chance for something to change.
Much of Europe is struggling with tumbling birth rates that experts say will threaten long-term economic well-being. And Greece is a stark example of how hard it will be to reverse the trend. Its prime minister has called the problem a ticking time bomb.
You want to have a second child, but to have a second child, more money must come into the house. To have a family these days, you need to become a hero.
Greece has one of the lowest fertility rates in all of Europe. Hundreds of thousands of young people have already left Greece. The nearest primary school to Armenio serves 17 villages, and it's thinning out. Nectaria Moropoulou is a first-grade teacher to just 4 students. She says inflation and soaring rent means she can't start a family.
Give young people like me a reason to stay here and have families and have schools filled with children so that schools stay open.
Greece's Minister for Social Cohesion and Family Affairs, Sofia Zakaraki, says addressing falling birth rates will be an uphill battle. Greece already has a birth allowance, tax breaks on baby items, and extended private sector maternity benefits. But these initiatives have shown few signs of working. Officials say the government is planning to unveil new measures in May. Zakaraki says the government needs to keep at it.
So demography is everything, if you come to think of that. It's infrastructure, it's workforce, it's economic policies. We need to keep trying. And it is actually our duty to keep trying. We cannot just give up.
Every spring, Japan witnesses a dazzling display of pink and white. The iconic cherry blossoms, called sakura, are in fact a national treasure, drawing millions of tourists each year. But climate change is casting an ominous shadow on them this year. Take a look.
The cherry blossoms are in full bloom. The cameras are busy, and so are the selfie-clicking tourists.
It's my first time here. I have been meaning to come here for 5 years now, and today I actually made it. I think it's beautiful. The weather is also perfect today. It's very crowded, of course, but apart from that, I think it's really beautiful.
It's really great. It's really something unique, I must say. And I don't think it happens that often here in Germany. It reminds me of Japan, which is very in at the moment. It really is nice and a great show of nature.
Viewing the cherry blossoms or sakura is a tradition that typically attracts people to parks having picnics, singing and drinking under cherry trees. But this year the blooms arrived early, and that is a cause of concern. A new study says cherry blossoms are appearing nearly 11 days earlier than usual. Kyoto saw the peak bloom on April 1st itself, the earliest in recorded history. The early bloom is a warning sign of climate change. Warmer temperatures, fueled by rising industrial emissions, are disrupting the natural flowering cycle of the plants, and the trend is expected to continue, with studies showing earlier blooms across the globe. London's historic parks are also experiencing a similar early bloom of cherry trees. The same is the case with Munich, where it began to bloom early, which are indicators of early spring. The cherry blossoms herald spring season, but in the present times, their early arrival is also a stark reminder of the rapid climate change. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And on that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we